The latest entry in the MCU that moves the story further forward in the timeline than the last entry, which of course was Black Widow, is Marvel's Shang-Chi. Now, the story deliberately tries to make it very clear that we're moving past the events of Avengers Endgame by straight up not even really acknowledging everything that happens. Now, the producer of the film has an explanation as to why this choice was made. So if you watch Marvel's Shang-Chi, the references to the events of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame are more or less a quick mention and a throwaway. If you're not paying attention, it just kind of goes right over your head. The world has quite clearly moved on from what happens there, from people coming back and what exactly is the new normal for the world. A new interview with Jonathan Schwartz, the producer for Marvel Studios' Shang-Chi from The Direct, goes into answering why exactly this choice was made. And what they were able to get is that the story that unfolds before them is the story that's important to the film. The events of Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, and what's going on in there didn't really impact these characters and the storytelling. So the way you kind of look at this is in the simplest way possible. Is there a reason that somebody like the Mandarin would have to sit there, look at the camera and go, during those 5 years, half my army disappeared and I sat here, and it's like, you don't need to get into that. We get what happened, and we've already had a few projects touch upon that. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, for example. Spider-Man dealt with that. We don't need another entry in the franchise that deals with that fallout. WandaVision, even recently, was a major part of that. It's time to slowly move on past that and show us the world beyond it. How people are recovering, what's going on, what is happening with it, and different corners of the world and how they're rebuilding. That's exactly what we see in Shang-Chi. And they specifically talk about the fact that they wanted just a quick mention in there. Yes, this takes place after Endgame, but we're not going to dwell on the events of Endgame. We're telling the story of Shang-Chi and these characters as it relates to them. What happened before doesn't necessarily affect them, but in the grand scope of things, it did affect everything, so the world is just picking up and moving on. And before people say that's not realistic, that they would dread on this for years and years, I don't know how true that is considering the circumstances in our own world and what happened just over a year and a half ago, and how quickly we just bounce back to a giant mess as a whole planet. So people quite clearly do not look back on the things that recently happened, just go, yeah, okay, that thing changed everything. People are willing to go back to normal and not mention the events that have transpired really quick.